Well, especially between the United States and Germany, I would say it's huge. It's former Ambassador Wolfgang Ischinger compared it to the problems we had during the run-up to the Iraq War, and came up with the judgment that this might be even worse than back in 2002, because then it was a policy disagreement, and now it's a question of trust. And having the chancellor in the middle of all that, I mean, we all know how much she always admired, and I think she's still admiring the United States. That was her first huge trip after the fall of the wall. She went with her boyfriend to California. You know, she loved this country. So don't underestimate the level of personal disappointment in all this. Well, I would say we are in the early steps. I mean, what we see right now is real changes in the United States. I'm sure that this free fire zone, which was created to spy on almost everybody, including the chancellor, that this is something which will end. I understood that the presidential finding 12333, which gives the NSA broad opportunities to spy on almost everybody, that it will be narrowed in a way we don't know right now, but I'm looking forward to see what these changes might be. And the second thing is that you see a lot of reactions in the market. I mean, Silicon Valley is outraged. They already came here to Washington talking to the president, letting him know how big the damage for the business already is. And there's a lot of talk in Europe about technical sovereignty. So Deutsche Telekom came up with the idea of routing emails and telephone calls only inside Germany. The German Interior Minister came up with the idea to circumvent the United States when it comes to communication. I don't know how serious all this will be, but it shows you that the reactions are huge and they are still coming in. Well, I would say partly it's all true, and partly it's true that Europe depends on intelligence capabilities delivered by the United States almost the same way we are dependent on military capabilities. So there is no doubt about it that we are partners. We are close partners, and we know the value of what is coming from the intelligence service of the United States. I think the hard question is, can you be everything on the same day? You know, on one hand, you're the closest partner you have, and on the other hand, you behave like an adversary. I don't think this doesn't make sense. I personally have to say, I really doubt that spying on the chancellor or German politicians really makes a lot of sense. I don't think that they get a lot which they couldn't get from personal contacts or out of German newspapers. Yeah, I would say definitely. Espionage is always in history made a lot of damage once it became public, and we are in this area. But let me say again, I think the broader point in all this is that nation states discovered that their communication is fundamentally insecure. And the Silicon Valley is ruling the world when it comes to communication. So almost all communication from Europeans, or at least something like 80%, is going through service in the United States. If this is true, you have to have some guarantees. You know, under which circumstances will somebody tap into this data? For what purposes will it be used? Will it be for economic espionage? Will there be some guarantees for my own citizens? So I think this is what really came out of the revelations by Edward Snowden. We all have discovered how fundamentally insecure communication is, and given that our whole life is migrating partly into the digital world, we have to have some guarantees what will happen to our communication. Well, I would say that states have the they have to work on how to guarantee a certain amount of privacy in the digital world. I mean, they have to protect their citizens, and there are good reasons for that. I think we don't have to elaborate on that. But on the other hand, to balance freedom and security is not a new question. I mean, this is something democracies dealt with for decades. Though I think what we will see now, what we have to see is some smart movers to rebalance liberty and security in the digital world. That's what my paper, which I wrote together with Ben Scott, who is much smarter than I am when it comes to the digital world. That was exactly what we tried to do here at the Wilson Institute and at New America, trying to find a way how we could get out of all this mess. And the proposal we made is first that Europe should become serious. But I mean, one have to know that there are no guarantees even for European citizens. I mean, not to the extent the NSA is doing that, but we all know that the British, for example, are using a lot of data and spying on Europeans as well as part of the European Union. So if Europe really wants to take this thing serious, they have to start with guarantees for their own citizens in Europe, and then they should come to the United States and trying to find a common standard under which circumstances and for which purposes we are going to tap into the communications of our citizens. If we could achieve that, the summer of Snowden would at least have some benefit.